with us today to talk about self-care in the workplace. I am so excited to friend Daisy Auger-Dominguez, who is a new friend. We met earlier this year. Turns out that Daisy had read Real Self-Care, and she was her second book about um, how to overcome burnout, which we're going to talk all about. But we connected at the first conference in New York last summer or this past summer. And since then, we found out that we know so many of the same people and love so many of the same people and have so much in common. And I am just so excited to be here with you, Daisy. And I just want to say your book, Burnt Out to Lit Up, I feel like it came to me at exactly the right time.
Mm,
Um, I'm in this place right now with my business where I'm making some big transitions and, have I came to understand that I'm a really good psychiatrist. I'm a really good therapist. I learned how to be a psychiatrist and a therapist. I never learned how to manage people.
mm,
And managing people is very, very different than being a therapist or than being a parent,
mm.
like it's a different line. And prior to coming to work and reading your book, I think I got myself stuck in well, I just have to take care of everybody.
Mm.
And I know that that's part of it, and we're going to talk about this, but it's actually a different type of taking care of when you are the manager. Um, So, so I have a bunch of questions, but first, why don't you introduce yourself to folks that are listening or watching or reading? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and yeah, just all the things.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Pooja. And what you missed in talking about how we connected was that I was fangirling you for months after reading your book and quoting you in my book, and feeling like this is the message that I need to hear as I am crafting this message for the people who lead and manage others. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with so many of us and doing it in so many forms. It's a pleasure to be here.
I
Um,
will take all the flattery. Thank you.
yes, please, all the love. We can all take all the love we can, all the joy. I'm Daisy Auger-Dominguez. I am a chief people officer, currently in transition, operating as a fractional chief people officer, which is the modern thing to do now. I work with different organizations, advising them on anything from organizational structure, but really fundamentally how to lead and manage in today's modern workplace. I like to think that I like to say that I help managers, leaders, but also individual contributors and organizations see, feel, and think about how they work differently. Because I think that helps lighten us up in, as you really beautifully wrote in your book as well, in organizations and systems that are flawed, right? That,
Yeah.
in many ways feel like they're out to get us. But we can't fix the things around us if we're not okay within. I have spent the better half of my career in the diversity, equity, and inclusion and people space. I did start my career as a credit risk analyst at Moody's Investor Service. I also managed a global foundation. So I like to think that I'm really a Gen Z at heart. It's like I've just done a lot
You're
of
like
things that
riding the waves.
yes, I'm like, these things are interesting and they feel purposeful. But when I found myself in the HR space, it felt like this is the place that I was meant to be,
Mm,
helping organizations do well by making sure that they did well by their people, right? And that we created the conditions for the most important asset of an organization, your people, to do their work well. And so I've worked in finance, I've worked in tech at Google, I've worked a lot in the media space, Disney, Time Warner, Viacom, most recently Vice Media. And I'm in a place in my career now where it's an incredible honor to think about this work of managing people, Pooja, because I think for many of us, and I know I've been there where when you're taking on a team, for many of us, we thought it was like, well, the way that you advance in your career, right, is to manage teams and to, go up the ladder this way. But to your point, you as a psychiatrist weren't trained to manage and lead people. Individual contributors aren't trained to manage and
Hmm.
lead, right? Like you're like, I'm going to take on this title and this title. And what I've experienced over the course of my career is well-intended people that are poorly skilled and are not given the right resources and support. And the support comes in usually after, right? After you've
Mm.
done something bad, right?
Yeah,
After,
right, right. Hmm.
right? It's like, oh, well, now we should give them, like, it's like, is this remedial work? I was like, now we should teach them how to manage people. I was like, no, 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 that work should have happened a long time ago to avoid the angst and the pain, but also to avoid the loss in productivity. And, and all of these questions that nag at CEOs about, how do we make organizations more productive? How do we, increase our bottom line? I was like, well, you can increase your bottom line if you actually engage your people differently. But we tend to think about this in, in these very unstructured moments. And so I'm a big advocate of training and equipping people to lead and manage to their best ability.
Sort of like it's a separate skill set.
Yeah.
It's a completely separate skill set.
Even a
And I know,
separate job.
yeah, it's a
I
separate
think
job. Yeah,
I think about it
yeah.
as like it's two jobs, right? You're doing your
Yes.
day job and then you're managing people.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think that that's so, I had never not thought of it that way, but yeah, it really is when there's a problem, then it becomes performance improvement plan, remediation. It's all punitive as opposed to saying, "Hey, you're being promoted. You're being promoted. Here's this training program that you're going to go through." I mean,
Yes.
but then it becomes, then there's this whole piece of like, well, now it's more work, and et cetera. But that's the reality. And I think you said something in the book about how you know, when you're working with folks who are um just starting out, they're kind of like, oh, I want to be promoted, I want to be a manager, be a director, and it's sort of like, well, be careful what you wish for. um and that was my experience too. I was like, god, like managing people sucks, like but it's just
Yeah,
because you have to learn, and it's its own thing. So
it is.
why don't we jump in? You
That's what-
there's one I love about how you frame all of this is that it's sort of like there are solutions. This is not hopeless,
Oh,
and that
yeah.
you have a lot of great strategies. So there's two pieces I wanted to dive into. So one, you talk about this concept of like bracing mediocrity.
Yes.
Tell
Yes.
us more about
Oh
that.
my goodness. Well, and I should say that the embracing mediocrity came to me much later in my career because
Hmm.
for many
Hmm.
of us, especially when we're the first, the onlys, right? Only
Hmm.
for me, I was usually the youngest many,
Hmm.
many years ago, right? But the youngest, only woman, only person of color,
Hmm.
usually the only Spanish speaker, right?
Hmm.
All of these, the story that I would tell myself was that I needed to overwork and over control to be respected, right? And that I needed to do
Hmm.
all the things. And we tend to go like 110, 120, 150% all the time. And to be fair, it did me well in many moments of my career, right?
Hmm.
There was a reason why I got promoted so often, right? Because I was the
Right.
one always raising my hand. I was getting the job done. I was connecting the dots. I was doing all the things that are helpful, but I was often doing it at the sake of my own health and my own well-being and my own happiness, quite frankly, right? Like that's why I talk about joy because I was like, you're like you lose the joy in what you're doing. And mediocrity came to me really, it was during the pandemic, when I was just like, just we were doing things that we had never done before, building new, rule books for stuff that had never happened. I would often say I was like, I'm impersonating, a doctor by day because people are asking me all sorts
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
questions. And I'm like, I don't know. Let me look up what the CDC just said, right? And then
Right.
I'll come
Right.
back with a level of competence and confidence and share this with you so that you don't lose your mind, right? Like that, this is what was happening every day. And I started practicing with my team, right? My direct reports who I have a very good relationship with. And I was like, you know what? Today I am just going to be mediocre because even at my mediocre self, I am still running circles around people around here. It's like I'm still getting things done, but being strategically mediocre to me means just making it a little lighter for me. Just right, like I don't have to do all the things. If I do two and three things really well, that change the outcome for someone, right? That make things a little better for someone else, that is fine. I don't have to do all the things. But that mediocrity, it actually came from, it was inspired from my pediatrician when
Oh.
my daughter was born,
Mhm.
when she was a baby. You know, you have to take them every couple of months, and they get checked, and their height and their weight, and they tell you how they do on the chart. And my pediatrician would always tell us my daughter was always 50th percentile in everything, and just
Mhm.
uh, and she would just look at us. She's like, she's perfectly mediocre. I was like, and I remember the first time I heard that, I looked at my husband. I was like, I don't want my daughter to be mediocre. But then, as a parent, it's such a win. She's healthy.
Yes, yes,
She's
yes.
good. Like she's growing. And my pediatrician helped me build a different relationship with that word, because it no longer felt that it was less than. It felt like it was
Yeah,
exactly where she was supposed to be. And so for me to
yeah,
be strategically mediocre is doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now, not doing more, because if I push myself more, I'm actually going to be less effective. If I push myself more, I'm actually going to be um bad at making the decisions that are helping others, and that I'm trying to enact so that others have a better work experience. So I'm going to be strategically mediocre, and I'm going to give not just myself permission to do that, but I'm going to give you permission to do that as my team member. And then my team would look at me and laugh, but they would just be like, I get it. I get it. It's like,
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
do less. Just say
Mhm.
less, do less.
Yes, yes. And I mean, I think that really ties into one, the verbiage decreases stress and anxiety because
Yes.
you're immediately validating your direct reports and saying, I trust you, I know you got this, you
Mhm.
know, like, so
You're
there's
okay. You're
that.
good. Yes.
But then, right, you're good. But then on the other side of it, the thing that I like about it is that it de-emphasizes doing and lifts up the decision making.
Hmm.
It lifts up the time that you take to actually think about how am I going to spend my energy if I have 6 hours today to give to this project or to give to my team, like what is the best use of my time and my mental resources, and which are the decisions that I actually need to be thinking on, because we all know that shows like like we only have a certain amount of time each day where we can be doing that deep work and
Mhm.
really giving the best parts of our brain. And so you have to make sure that you're giving that to the questions that really matter. And so much, especially in a corporate environment, there's just so much busy work. There's so much like posturing, almost maybe
Oh my gosh.
posturing,
Yes. Yes.
that you can get stuck in that and forget, like, wait a second, that's not even the point.
No,
Um,
I call it, I was like, stop faking the funk.
yes,
Just
yes,
like
yes,
stop trying to do all the things. I don't know
yes.
if you experience this, but I know that sometimes, it would be like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon towards the end of the day, and someone would come with like a really gnarly question or something that needed to be solved.
Mhm.
And sometimes I would just think, I'm like, I've got no more good answers today. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I've got nothing else to give. And somehow you still have to summon, right, that energy and that thought. But there's a deep part of you that knows I'm not giving my best right now. And
yeah,
and I'm sure this is, you probably talk to your clients about this. It's like, and that ends up also becoming another debilitator in your sense of self-worth, and in your emotional wellness, because then I'm carrying that shame, right?
yes,
Like now it
yes,
becomes my shame to carry, and I'm just like, God, I let them down. I didn't do it. I was like, well, if I had managed my energy differently during the day, that might have been different. I was like, and that I can control, that I have agency over. But we sometimes
yes,
like let go, we let go of power, right? Because it's really about
yes.
power,
It's
right?
about power. Yep,
And this is
yep,
this is what
yep.
you talk about, which I love and appreciate so much in your book. It's, we just assume that that power resides somewhere else, not in us, right? And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
yeah, no, it is, and it's like, okay, well, it's somebody else's responsibility, so I won't do it, right? It's somebody, it's somebody else will take care of it, and we forget. I was like, no, 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 no. It's here. I have agency, even as an individual contributor, and I get this often, like, oh, Daisy, well, when you're a leader, you have all this power. I was like, no, every one of us at different layers. Yeah, there's different positional privilege and power, but every one of us has the power to be able to pause and think and ask, right? Boundary build.
Yep. Yep.
What can help create your best conditions for you to show up as your best self, for yourself
Yes.
and for everybody else?
Yes. I always like to tell the story. I think in Real Self Care, I wrote about it in the power section. I was a medical student. This was in, God, 2007, 2008. So like 20 years ago now. And I was doing my surgery rotation at like a notoriously malignant hospital in Philadelphia. And it was like a very like it was known that this surgery program was very tough. And they never learned my name. Like the team never learned my name. They would always be like, hey med student, come here with me to do this or do that or do that. So my taking back my power was saying my name's Pooja. Like
Yeah.
my name is Pooja. Like I have a name. And that, I mean, in these, that was way back when at this point, and hopefully that type of treatment is not happening anymore to medical students. But I didn't have control. I had to ask, you had to ask permission to go to the bathroom, right?
Oh, goodness.
Right. In setting.
Yeah, yeah.
But I could say my name's Pooja, and call me by my name. So it's like you at each level, you do have it's agree, but you do have it. And I think when we erase it by saying like, no, I'm just an intern. No, I'm
Mhm.
just a student. No, I'm just a volunteer. I'm just an analyst. Then you forget. And then what happens is you climb up the ladder, but you never learned how to exercise
No.
that muscle. So you are at the director, are in the C-suite, but you're still beholden to everybody else's wants and needs and can't take it back.
Yes, you shrink yourself to a version of yourself that no longer that no that's not who you are, right? But it's
Yeah.
like, but you, in shrinking yourself, you shrink your influence, right? You shrink
Yes.
your impact.
Yes.
You shrink your ability to do the things that you are meant to do. And you're absolutely right. It is not something that just happens at one stage in your career, right? For me, I have seen it throughout my entire career, from being a junior person to moving all the way up to the C-suite, to having to look at the narratives that right, like check myself, check the narratives that I'm telling myself. I'm like, who am I not to say this right now, right? Like
Yeah.
somewhere deep in my career, I was told, you do not speak at this point, right? You do not say this, or you experienced in others when someone said that there was a punitive response to them, right? So you
Yeah.
learn how to navigate and really how to protect yourself. But in that protection piece, it becomes like this, oh, this is not my sphere of influence. This is not my place to speak. This is not. And then when it is your place to speak, then you haven't built the muscles to do it, right? Or and frankly, the confidence to do it. And
Yeah.
that takes time. And that is
Yeah.
very much about giving away your power. And
Yeah.
that is something that took me, goodness, Pooja, and I loved your story when you shared it. It took me such a long time to get comfortable with even speaking about power in that context.
Mhm.
Because for so long I felt unease about the word power, right? Because of the instability of the power that we live in. And it wasn't until I recognized, I was like, walking into my own power sheds light on everybody else to do the same. And
Yeah.
who am I not to do that? Right? That is the responsibility that I have as someone that has been able to climb the corporate ladder like a stealthy ninja, right? Like all the things that I've had to do. But I was like, I am here now. I am going to use this space and this moment. And and in that power comes my ability to recognize how I can serve and lead others to the best of my capacity, which means that I have to be at my best to do that.
Right. Right. Gosh, I feel like we could talk all day. So I'm gonna try and keep us like on course here. So
Yes.
I have some specific for you. So
Okay.
um So my first question is, if you are somebody who is reading or listening right now, and for the folks who are in that people manager position, whether they're in HR, whether they are managing a team, whether they're in the C-suite or at the director level, um, if that person, I imagine many of those folks are saying to them, gosh, we are again in unprecedented times. And I'm just struggling to get by myself. And
Mhm.
yet I have this team of people who depend on me, and I know they are struggling as well.
Mhm.
What would your advice to that person, to kind of take some first steps, or to even just think about, like, how do I move in a way where I preserve my sanity and also give something to my team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that before we can give something to our team, we have to recognize and reinforce our why, right?
Mm,
Why, why are you where you are, right? Like, I often say, I was like, I go to work because I can't, I can do the things at work that I can't do by myself with others,
mm,
right? And
mm,
that requires also entering into a space that I know is going to be complex. It's humans, it's messy, right? It is all of those things. And my why allows me to see the context of what I'm in and to accept it for what it is, right? Not, it's like there is the vision of work that we want to be, and then there is what work really is, right? And I walk into spaces knowing this is what work really is, and I want to do what I can to move it towards my aspiration of what work can be. And that's my why, right? All of us have a different why, but what is, and to do that for ourselves and to do that for our teams, right? We need to take
mm,
moments to spotlight how everyone's work ties into the broader mission of the organization, because we all want to feel seen and affirmed, valued, right? And so that kind of why is simple. Like in a team meeting, you can share customer feedback, you can share success stories, you can share project milestones that remind people of the impact that they're making, right? But again, before you can do that for others, you have to do that for yourself, right? What is the
mm,
impact that you're making? And is it the impact that you want to be making? Right?
mm,
Is this what you want to do? And that kind of I talk a lot about it from a self-awareness lens in the book. And self-awareness comes through deep reflection, right? Is asking
yes,
yourself those
yes,
questions. And it's putting up a mirror and really being willing to contend with what the mirror tells you. And it's
yeah,
not always pretty. For me, I know it's not always pretty as a leader, as a parent, as a partner, as a friend, as a daughter, right? I've had to have moments of like I could have shown up differently in that space. I could have done this differently. And I was like, why is this important to me? Right. And
mm,
that why is really critical. I think we also don't spend enough time, and I talk about it in the book around sprinkling gratitude like confetti, right? Like,
mm,
we don't
mm,
spend
mm,
enough time celebrating small wins and sharing
mm,
with us what we actually do like about work. We like to spend a lot of time, which I think is really draining, talking about all the things that are awful at work. And by the way, they're true, and complaining is fun,
mm,
right? It's like, and all of that, and has its space. But I do think that we expend energy when we do that, and we gain energy when we remind ourselves, right, with gratitude and joy and wins. Like, what is it that really truly excites you about work, right?
yeah,
Remembering like that joy. There was a reason why I wanted joy in the book, and it's right, it's
yeah,
burnt out to lit up, how to reignite the joy of leading people.
yes.
And most people don't think about leading people as joyful, right? It's just like this is a lot of work. I have a
Hmm.
colleague that when he was becoming a manager, this was years ago, he was like, "Am I going to spend all my days just approving vacation days?" And I was just like, I'm pretty sure I've never seen a full-time job that required that, but but also instead of thinking about it that way, what about thinking about I get to give people, right, the
Hmm.
room and the space to rest and replenish so they can show up at work in their best selves, right? It's how do we reframe these little workplace nightmares and angst that we experience from a place of gratitude and from a place of recognition of what is good in the work that we do and in the people around us. And then I
Mm-hmm.
would say the third piece, which is, and you speak about that in your book a lot, but it's like, how do we encourage mindful pauses throughout our days? And that was a really hard one for me, Pooja, because I would wake up and my schedule would be just completely packed, right? And like before I got to the office, on the way to the office, I was answering emails, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
responsible for a global team, over 20 countries, different time zones, right?
Oh my
Posted,
gosh.
it was just this constant, at any hour of the day, there was a crisis somewhere in the world that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
me and my team were responding to. And I wasn't good at recognizing that when exhaustion builds, like a pause and reflect break, even just a 2 to 5 minute little break,
Mm-hmm.
can have such a deep impact on your physiology, right? Like I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
like on your neural centers, right? Like
Yeah.
I think about them now. Like I have this visual imagery when I feel stressed, like my cortisol levels, like going
Mm.
right now. And I'm just like, okay, I gotta bring them down. I got like
Mm-hmm.
that's a little bit of the reflection modes, right? And
Mm-hmm.
mindful pauses for me. I also was someone that did not believe in mantras. Yeah. I was like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, those are like woo-woo things. Like,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
like my
Yeah.
people don't do that, right? And I am such a fan, and I share tons of them throughout the book. I'm such a fan of mantras as a grounding practice.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in those mindful pauses, like what grounds me? Because right, I could do a I could say I'm going to spend the next 3 to 5 minutes doing a mindful pause, but I have tons of monkeys in my head telling me all sorts of things, and like I am not pausing. It's what grounds me. Sorry, there was a little beep. What grounds me? What do I need to hear right now? Am I feeling scared? Like, okay, what's the mantra of I feel safe. I am okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
like there is no real threat happening right now, Daisy. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you're safe. There is nothing happening, right? It is, but we have to build those practices as sorry, we have to build those mindful pauses and those moments of gratitude and those moments of reinforcing your why as practices, right? Because a practice has to be practiced. I was really intentional in the book. I don't want to call these strategies, right? I know this is a
Yeah. Yeah.
business
Yeah.
book, and in business books it's all about like, here's the 5 strategies to achieve.
Right. Right.
Like, no, like you just have to, it's like building muscle. You just have
Yeah.
to like, practice it all the time. I had a great training session today with the owner of the gym that I work at. So it was like really
Mm.
special because he barely
Mm.
trains you. Um
Mm.
and he hadn't trained me in months, and he was giving me like bigger weights, and he's like,
Mm.
"Whoa, Daisy, you've got this." And I looked at him at one point, I was like, "I've been here. Have you?" Like, I've been doing the work. And it was so cute because he was so impressed, but he kept on
Mm.
giving, he's like, 5 pounds, no, 10 pounds, no, 15. I was
Mm.
like, I can do more. I've got this, right?
Mm.
But it was a really, it was such a fun moment, but it was a reminder of this. I have been practicing this for 2 years now. This isn't just
Mm.
happening. Like
Yep.
I've been coming consistently to the gym to build my muscles for my health, for my well-being, and I am showing it. But I also know that if I stop going to the gym for a couple of months, these muscles will get flabby again. Right? It's like
Yep.
it's gonna get harder to pick up that 20 pounder, right? I'm gonna may have to go back to the 10 pounder. I'm sorry. I think there is. Oh, it's
That's
my
okay.
husband's machine.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's always blame it on the husband.
Yes,
Um,
it is in the back.
this
So
this
I hope that's
this
helpful.
is this is perfect. So just kind of recapping.
Mhm.
So for the folks who are in the position of being burnt out and facing the challenge of being a leader in place,
Mhm.
it's coming back to your why, like
Yep.
taking that time to really think about. And I love what you said about you come to work because you know that you can achieve more and your things with other people,
Yes.
that
Yep.
what you could do alone is not the same as what you could do with other people, and that is your why, and everybody has a different why. And then from there, taking that to, posing that question to your actual teams and your direct reports. The second one was the gratitude, the sprinkling
Yes.
gratitude, which I love that. And all small wins. I feel like, especially in corporate culture, there's a way where people can kind of side eye that or feel like it's like soft or mushy
Yeah.
or whatever. No, actually, that is so important because people want to feel seen. People
Yes.
want to feel seen and validated, and so important that we have that built in. And then the last one was the
Yeah.
pausing, and you know, some I for me, like sometimes it's even as simple as just like breathing, like just remembering that I'm not breathing, like taking a breath, just taking a breath, like
It is wild how often we don't breathe. And you know how I
yeah.
learned that? I learned that also, I'm sorry, this beep thing, sorry. Um, oh my God, I don't want to turn it off. And I
um for folks who are listening, that yeah, the breathing thing is like, it sounds so silly, and like when you always read that advice, well, like just breathe, and like whenever I read it, I'm just like, oh my God, this is so stupid, but it like literally is.
Yes. Well, I had my I remember when I started working out, I don't know, doing sit-ups or something, and
Mhm.
the trainer kept on saying breathe. And I was like, I'm breathing.
Yes,
He was like, you're
yes,
not breathing. And I was like, he was like, and he's like, you don't understand how, like, most of the practice that I train folks here is teaching them how to breathe, because most people do not know how to breathe. And it's like, and you're getting tense, which is what
yeah,
happens. And so
yeah,
in the tense moment, I was like, he's like, you're breathing shallow. It's like, you need to breathe deeply. And I was like, and that
yeah.
was such a realization for me. I was like, what do you mean that I'm not breathing? I was like, yes. And that's why, and I talk about it in the book also, breath work
Yeah.
became such like a life-changing experience for me, because I was of the mind that I had to spend hours meditating, right? Like that I had to
Mm,
learn
mhm,
how to like do that. And like I've said already, like I have too many monkeys in my head.
mm,
And I was just like, but I don't know how to, like, how do I self-regulate, right? I have
yeah,
self-regulating kind of, just like by by like whatever I can do in the moment, but I haven't been intentional about it for like my entire life. And I started doing breath work, and the four, the square,
yes, yes.
EFT tapping, like all of this, but it makes that is actually my go-to breath work
Hmm.
whenever I am about to like just blurt something out or lose. Like if I can get the frame of mind to just say, wait, like this isn't like what is happening right now, Daisy, right? What is happening in your body? It's like just take a deep breath, right? Take a couple of deep breaths. That just centers me, it grounds me again, and it allows you. I know it allows me, but it allows, I think, most of us to be able to actually see what is happening versus
Yes,
the cloudiness that happens when we are just like stop breathing and just internalize everything and tighten up and just do
yep,
this, right? It's like,
yes, yes. Brilliant. Um, so I have one more
yes, please.
question before I have to wrap up here. Um, and I'm sure this is the question that you were going to be asked over and over and over now for the next 4 years. So I'm so to probably be one of the first to ask it. But what do you what advice do you have for leaders in the workplace? I mean, really not even just leaders in the workplace, but folks who work in corporate America, as we're now in coming up into to the next administration, and there's obviously a lot of uncertainty, and um, I don't know, just any kind of pearls, like
Oh,
what are you telling people? How are you how are you thinking about this? And maybe it's even if your answer is just like, I don't, I'm a mess. That's fine too.
no. It's funny. I was definitely a mess the day after the election.
Hmm.
That I was in my feelings like many of us
Hmm.
were. There is a wisdom that comes from experience that we often forget in those moments of crisis.
Hmm.
And one of my lessons learned in writing the book is about getting savvier about identifying the signs of burnout, right? Because
Hmm.
burnout can show up in small and sometimes subtle ways, right? It's like
Hmm.
little shifts in attitude or behavior that can seem insignificant, right? Chronic illnesses, right?
Hmm.
Like these colds that I used to get. That's how I
Hmm.
found that I was burnt out, because I was just constantly ill. But sometimes is this feeling of detachment. And so for me, I've been struggling very hard not to feel detached, to feel connected to this
Mm,
moment, to feel
mm,
connected to the people, not in a way that's going to drain me, because that was usually my go-to, but it's like, how do I
mhm.
stay attached to this moment and the people in my life without succumbing to my old patterns of the doing too much and the worrying too much and the going into the rabbit hole of all of the things. It was like, how do I stay attached and present so that I can stay whole for myself and for others during what's to come, because we still don't know what's to come, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been framing this as the sequel, right? Like
Mm,
the sequel's going to be even more painful, and
yeah.
the chaos is going to be even more challenging. But here's what we can lean on: we have been through unprecedented chaos
Yes.
and
Yeah.
have allowed ourselves to get distracted by it now. I will not allow myself to
No.
get distracted by it now, right? I am going
Hmm.
to be as connected and as attached as I can, and know
Mm,
that all these things are going to be coming at me. It's like
hmm.
I get to choose how and when I respond to these moments so that I can show up as my best self and help not just myself but others to the best of my capacity. And that's what I'm leaning on right now. And I'm sure some days will be better than others. It's again, it's a practice. But it is that learning from writing Burnt Out to Lit Up. And I call that process kind of my pharmacy, right? Like I was
Mm,
building my
mhm,
pharmacy,
mhm.
and this is I am picking the items in my pharmacy that serve me well. And that what serves me well is to stay connected, to stay grounded in the moment, right? And to be able um to not allow myself to get distracted by the stuff that's supposed to distract me. I was like,
Yeah.
that's supposed to distract me. I was like, it's meant to distract me so that I don't show up as my best self. Not today.
Right. Right. We're smarter than that. We're
Yeah.
smarter than that. I think that's a great answer, and I think it really is. It's it reminds me that we're all doing it together
Yes.
too. We're doing this together, and we have been through it before, and certainly this time will be different, more painful, but we've learned, uh and yeah, so I appreciate that. Um, I'm trying out this new thing with this interview series of asking. Uh, I would love to hear. Tell us one boundary that you have set in the past week.
Oh, that's a great one. One
Sorry, I
bound.
should have warned you about this before we
Yeah. No,
pressed
no, no. That's
record, but I
that's
totally
fine.
forgot.
I think, the most basic boundary has been not to allow myself to be doom scrolling all day long. That's
Hmm.
that's it. It's
Hmm.
like I like you, social media is my tool to communicate with others. And like
Yeah.
you, writing is my coping mechanism,
Yeah.
right? So, I am my boundary is I go in twice a day,
Mm,
I
mm,
post, I share and connect with others, because it's like
hmm.
it's also about being generous with others, not just taking. And
Yes.
then I'm just like, I'm not gonna check it again till later in the day. And then later in the day I go in and I do,
Mm,
and I'm watching myself. I wish I could tell you I was like 5-10 minutes. I usually will go a little longer. But my
mm,
boundary has been not to doom scroll to the point of getting myself out of the place of harmony that I'm trying to stay in, right?
hmm.
And it helps. It really helps. I found that the more that I go into the doom scrolling mode, the more that then my head starts going everywhere, and I just I breathe. My breathing shifts, right? My body
Yeah.
language shifts, and even my response to like those around me, like my husband and my daughter, right? They don't get the best of me because
Yes.
I'm in that space. I'm also trying
Yeah.
to teach my daughter, my teenage daughter, to do that. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for someone that's on YouTube and TikTok as long
Yeah.
as I can.
Mm,
But that's one thing that I found helpful for me in this past week.
mm. I love that. Well, that's really relatable, and it's something that I think we're all trying to do that. And one of the things that I've noticed too is just paying attention to how like the different online spaces
Yes.
make me feel. Like Substack actually feels a lot more generative for me. I
Okay.
find that Substack, it feels like there's times where I actually get energy as a
Yeah.
as opposed to like Twitter or X where it's just constantly,
I
there's
can't even,
no
I don't
energy.
even, I
Yeah.
gave up on X a long time ago.
Yeah.
I can't.
um so good. Well, again, I want to make sure to that everybody sees this gorgeous just cover out to lit up how to reignite the joy of leading people. Tell us please all the places that we can follow you and find you and up with you. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, my community is LinkedIn because I write
Okay.
about his work.
Yes.
So you can always find me there, Daisy Auger-Dominguez. And then Instagram, Daisy AD. My website, Daisy Auger-Dominguez.com. Those are the three places where you will find me most. And then I am constantly writing and speaking, and hopefully will come to a place near you. And if you want to invite me, I love talking about burnout and the modern workforce.
Awesome. And you do a ton of
Yes, I
and
do.
companies and organizations. So hit Daisy up if you are if your workplace is looking for somebody to come and teach these tools to do a workshop or things like that. And get the book because like I said, like it's a really good book. And I felt like it was kind of written for me at this exact moment in my career. And I'm going to be like kind of like referencing it for years to come. It's already like highlighted.
Oh my gosh, I
um,
appreciate you so much. I'm so glad to hear that.
all right.